Freedom Marchers, what's good? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. This is Snapzilla Gorilla, aka The Definition, aka Tyrus Bane. Welcome to Freedom's March. This morning, on Monday, October 24th, 2022, I want to discuss, once again, Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Now, he did a video where he was discussing, I forgot exactly what he was discussing, but he mentioned Ron DeSantis in Florida and the hypocrisy behind Ron DeSantis, banning open carry and concealed carry at his events, and which is true, is pure hypocrisy, and that's a red flag for Ron DeSantis if I were a voter. Anyway, and if I were a voter who was maybe interested in Ron DeSantis as president in 2024, but anyway, so before it goes deep into the video, he talks about how he doesn't want people to twist his words up, that he's not for complying. And he mentioned it multiple times, right? He said that he is not for complying, that he is all about shall not be infringed, point blank in a period. And this was good to hear, okay? Because sometimes people, sometimes people, particularly statists, law and order people, tend to contradict themselves and suffer from cognitive dissonance. I know that Jared used to be a police officer, and I don't know if he's still a statist. Well, he has to be, because he believes in voting and all this other shit. So yeah, that's one thing. So he is a statist, and statists who believe in freedom, sometimes they get discombobulated, because you can't be a statist and believe in freedom at the same time and not suffer from cognitive dissonance, because in being a statist, there can be no freedom, right? And I'm talking about 100% unadulterated, uninfringed freedom. So what happens is you start to kind of, well, not start, but you do have to tiptoe around what's really going on, and you can't go full bore in one direction. And if you do, well, then you lose steam from one group or another, right? Because let's face it, many people are not ready to be 100% free individuals. Some people are not ready to give up that statist mind state. And that's where Jared is right now at this point in time. And I can say that confidently because he does believe in people voting. He does believe in, electing senators and presidents and governors that he feels are going to ensure his freedom or ensure the freedom of the people, right? Anybody that tells you to go out and vote for your freedom is a statist, and they cannot believe in 100% freedom. But I'm glad that he's taking his firm stance and saying that he does not believe in compliance, that he does believe in the right to keep bear arms 100% down the line, and it's uncompromising, right? No compromise. That's where we have to stand in regards to the right to keep bear arms, and not just the right to keep bear arms, the right to free speech, the right. Oh yeah, he was talking about a New York employee, a New York City employee who was essentially who carries a firearm in a particular government building, and he's allowed to do so. And he's talking about how that is a complete BS, in that if that individual is allowed to carry a firearm in that space, then so should every other person. But anyway, moving on. Here's the thing. He may believe in the right to keep our arms 100%, but you also have to believe in every other freedom 100% that we are supposed to enjoy. The right to free speech, the right to be secure in our persons, papers, houses, and effects, and the right to not be not have to quarter a soldier or a police officer. These are things that we have to stand firm on 100%. And it's these things are not granted by the government. These things are not granted by the Constitution. These are things that are to limit the government in their governing of the people, right? That's what the Bill of Rights is for. That's what the Constitution is for. It tells the government what they can't do and what they're not supposed to do and what they have, and here's another thing. It also grants, the Constitution also grants the government power over certain things that affect us, and it affects our lives. And so I have a problem with that as well. So I don't use the Constitution as a shield. I don't use it as a tool to ensure that, look, I don't use it as a tool to say, hey, look, this is why I have this right. This is why I have that right. Because according to the Constitution grants the right to Congress to lay taxes and collect taxes. It also gives them the right to declare war. You understand what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't say anything about the Congress conferring with the people to see if, hey, do you guys want us to go to war? I don't remember any point in history where they had to get a vote from the people to go to war. You know what I'm saying? They just made that decision. They voted amongst themselves. And these are things that are a problem, right? And here's the thing. Here's the thing that the Constitution also grants the government. It grants them the right, essentially, to train the militia and all this other shit. So it mentions that they are supposed to basically control the militia and all this other shit, which really was just the military, right? Not the militia that the people form. And see, here's the thing: they can use that clause in, I think it's in the I forgot which article it's in. I can't think of it right now. Whichever article talks about the power of the Congress, right? The power of the Congress, they have the right, or they can supposed to control the militia, do this, do that, all that other shit. And so when they say well-regulated militia, people tend to think that that's what they're talking about, but that's not what it is. A well-regulated militia is a well-equipped militia, a well-manned militia, a well-trained militia. And also, it also says that in the Constitution that Congress is responsible for training the militia. But they didn't have an army at the time, so the militia was essentially their army that was supposed to defend against, the crown. At any rate, let me move on from that. I know I'm rambling and all that other shit, but there's a lot that I'm thinking about right now. Listen, and here's another thing. People like Jared and Braden from Langley Outdoors Academy and Miranda from Armed Scholar and all these other people, they rely heavily on the Supreme Court to ensure their rights. Again, it is not the responsibility of the Supreme Court to make sure that we have the rights that we are to enjoy, that we have freedom. And I'll point out another thing about Guns and Gadgets, Jared from Guns and Gadgets. He doesn't believe that you have the right to own a car and drive a car. But you do. You do have the right. Even if it's a so-called privilege, privileges are protected. It's protected. And if you look at 18 U.S. Code 242, it prevents, or not prevents, but it talks about how if an individual under the color of law violates your rights, privileges, and immunities, then they will go to jail. And depending on the level of the deprivation, whether it be kidnapping or injury, you know what I'm saying? Any form of violence towards you in the process of violating your rights, they can be put to death. So privileges like driving a vehicle and owning a vehicle is something that is a right. Privileges are rights. You have a right to your privileges, period. See, this whole thing about, oh, you have to earn certain shit from the government, or you got to get permission from the government to do certain things and all that type of shit. We have to get rid of all that. We have to get away from all those things. We can't just sit up here and say, look, we can't pick and choose which rights are the ones that we're going to fight for or the ones that we care about. If you care about freedom and you care about human rights, you have to care about all human rights and all human freedoms in order for me to take you seriously. Right? So I would say this. Good on Jared for standing firm in his belief that the right to keep bear arms shall not be infringed by any means at all. Good. But what's the next step? What's the next step we can take as individuals, as the people, to ensure that this is what it is, right? And not have to rely on the government, not have to rely. And see, the government is the one infringing on your rights. So why are we relying on any branch of government to restore our rights? No, we have to use. Sometimes we have to use their own shit against it. Like 18 U.S. Code 241 and 18 U.S. Code 242. Those are two things, and really those are only two things that we need. We don't need those articles, right? We don't even need those articles that have been written to use the penalties and punishments that they call for, right? But it's good that it's in there, because that's something that we can throw at them. Like, look, deprivation of rights under the color of law. That means that even if you create a law that would, in your mind, allow you to violate someone's rights, you are violating 18 U.S. Code 241 and 242, and therefore, blah, blah, blah. The next step, ... Ellipses. And what's after the ellipses? Well, it depends on the level of deprivation. Like I said, if you falsely arrest me, if you arrest me while violating my rights, if you injure me while violating my rights, if you kill me while violating my rights, well, then guess what? You got to go. You got to go meet the Sky Daddy or whatever you believe in. So let's use that. Let's find a way we can use that to our advantage to ensure that we do have freedom, because they're not just going to give it to us. I mean, we essentially have to fight tooth and nail for our rights. We have to, by any means necessary. By any means necessary, like Malcolm X said, we must ensure that our rights are intact. And we have to hold people like me, people like Jared, we have to hold our feet to the fire whenever we step out of that. Whenever we get off our square and we start sounding like a statist, we have to be put back in our place. Because you can't be half a freedom level, right? Just like what's his name told Nucky in Boardwalk Empire. You can't be half a gangster, right? You can't be half a revolutionary. You can't be half a freedom fighter. You got to go all in. You know what I'm saying? You have to go all in. And that's that message you have to push if you're really about that life. If you're really about true and utter freedom, you have to push that. And I get it. They're not at the level at the level in their mind and in their hearts that I'm at, in terms of not voting, you know what I'm saying? Not participating in the system as much as possible. Yes, do I still participate in the system? Do I still pay tax? I go to work, right? I still pay taxes. I still pay more, you know what I'm saying? I still pay state taxes. I pay city taxes and all that other shit. These are things that I do because that is the system, that is the society I'm living in right now. But that doesn't mean that I'm not genuine in my ideology, that I'm not genuine in my thoughts, and I'm not genuine or sincere about really being about freedom. That just means that, hey, for right now, this is what we have to do. But whenever I can, in a book, in a graphic novel that I'm writing, I am behaving as an outlaw whenever I can. As an outlaw, not a criminal, an outlaw. There's a difference. There's a difference between an outlaw and a criminal. Excuse me. Not all outlaws are criminals, right? And not all criminals are outlaws. You see what I'm saying? Because there are certain laws out there that allow criminality. What am I talking about? Let me give you an example. Qualified immunity, right? Police officers can behave as criminals and it not be against the law. You understand what I'm saying? So you can be a criminal and still operate within the law. And that's what government is. Government is criminality. Criminality is government. They're synonymous. You see, you can't have a crime without a victim, right? If you create a victim, you have the crime. Well, that's all government does, is create victims. When they extort you, when they take your money, when they force you to pay them taxes, that's a form of criminality. When they create laws and put jackbooted thugs out on the streets to keep you in your place, that's criminality. Government is the ultimate criminal. There is no more dangerous criminal. There is no more murderous criminal. There is no more thieving criminal. There is no more deceptive criminal than government. And that's the bottom line to it. And no one in government can ensure you have freedom. So that's why I'm mind boggled and befuddled when people tell you to go out and vote. That understand this. They understand that government ain't shit, but they tell you to go out and vote for someone to take a place in government to rule over you. You see what I'm saying? So when can we get away from that? When can we take a step back and say, look, it doesn't matter who you vote for. You can vote for the most freedom-loving motherfucker in the world, right? That Shane Hazel guy out of Georgia, the gubernatorial candidate that completely obliterated Stacey Abrams and Governor Kemp. I mean, he might actually be a true freedom lover. And then there's another one, there's another guy in, I want to say Arkansas or something. There's another libertarian guy. Forgot his name. But he on that same shit as Shane Hazel. Shane Hazel can get in there, but he can only do so much. He's a libertarian that doesn't believe that believes in extremely limited government, that is going to try to get into a position where he is going to be in control of a whole branch of government within his state. And then he's going to try to do what? He's going to try to ensure the freedoms of the people, but he has to go through the legislature. Yeah, he can do some executive actions here and there. He can do some executive orders. But what happens when, okay, he can do all these executive orders and executive actions and say, look, we're going to end qualified immunity. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he might do some good shit. He might even cut taxes down. He might even get rid of all payroll tax and just go with sales tax. Right? But let's say he does that. He takes all these executive actions, all this other shit, because he can take these executive actions and he can get away with it to a degree because he's part of the executive branch. And within the executive branch, you have the enforcers. And whoever is in control of the enforcers is in control, period. Right? And all you need is like a bankster that has his puppet strings attached to and the senior executive, and he's in control. That's what's going on within the United States government, federal government. But let's say Shane Hazel gets in there, makes all these great changes, brings about all these freedoms, right? Brings about all these freedoms. Well, what happens when he's no longer in office? What happens when his term is up? What happens when his term is up? The next motherfucking governor come in there and end all these executive actions and just bring everything back to the way it was. But But here's one thing Hazel could do. If he was really about that life, he could, as the executive, perform an executive action that would essentially get rid of term limits for governor in Georgia. And he could essentially decentralize government within Georgia. Would that be enough? No, it wouldn't, because guess what? The federal government would come in and install someone to replace him. See what I'm saying? But that he could be, look, he could make himself a martyr. If he's really about that life, he could say, you know what? I'm decentralizing government. I'm going to, and there's a safe way he could do it, but he had to be really careful about it and use the right terminology just to keep the federal government off his back, because they will come down on him. But what he could do is restore rights to the local governments, right? And limit his power over those local governments. And the only power he would have over those local districts is to ensure that they do not violate the rights of the individual. He could do that. You know what I'm saying? And then basically limit every local executive, limit their power only to that of ensuring that people's rights are intact. And that would include the police. The police, essentially the police mission would change, right? They would no longer be riding around trying to, extort people because they went 5 miles over the speed limit, or they rolled through a stop sign, or anything like that. No, they would get rid of all that extortionist behavior. No, they would just ensure that other individuals aren't violating other individuals' rights, that they aren't committing crimes against other people. They would become the police of the people, for the people, and by the people, and they would be controlled, and essentially there would be some type of civilian oversight committee that would rule over the police, that would be in control of hiring, firing, and vetting the police. Anybody that wants to be a police officer would have to be vetted by the civilian oversight committee, and that civilian oversight committee would be on a voluntary basis. Whoever wants to take up the role. You understand what I'm saying? And the civilian oversight committee could be a limited number. The people in that district or in that community, if it could be five committee members, or it could be 100 committee members. There'll be no limit to the amount of committee members that would oversee the police, because that way you wouldn't have to worry about voting for a committee member. You wouldn't have, it'd be whoever want to do it, right? Whoever would want to do it, and then you would understand that, yes, within this committee, it is essentially a democratic system, right? So you're volunteering to participate in a democratic system of a police oversight committee. And you would understand that we would have to vote on what the police can and can't do. But what we would understand is that there would be no more extortionist practices by the police. That would not, no vote for that. That would be automatic. You can't vote for the police to cause extortionist behavior. Only when an individual commits a crime against another individual would they have to pay a fine, right? Restitution to the individual that they violated. Not to the government, to the individual that they violated. And the people within the community would essentially pay, they would pay whatever they felt, if they felt like it, to the members of the committee. But the members of the committee are strictly there on a voluntary basis. So they understand that they don't have to be paid. They understand that they're not there to be paid. They're there to perform a service to the members of their community by ensuring that the police don't step out of line. Okay? I know I veered. Hey, this is not just about Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Anyway, much love. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Again, this is not a personal attack against Jared. I'm just pointing out that the inconsistencies and the contradictions. He has a huge platform, a huge voice, and we need to ensure that these people are really, pushing for our freedom. They can do a lot of good. They can do a lot of things with their influence. And so that's what this is about. Much love, like, share, subscribe, and let's keep marching forward toward freedom. Peace.